Good morning, everyone, or good afternoon. My name is Cassie Fortes. I'm the Program Development Officer at the Sacramento MBDA Export Center. Welcome to our second Roundtable webinar with the topic of supplier diversity. First and foremost, I'd like to just go through a couple housekeeping items and then we'll get started. So one, this webinar will be recorded and placed on our website after this. So if you didn't get a chance to review any of the materials, you can go ahead and do so after when that is posted. All attendees will be on mute, but we will be doing a Q&A portion with our audience members. And so the way that you can ask questions to our panel is to put it in the chat box below. And also the question and answer section is also available in your menu bar. So either one of those works if you'd like to ask a question to be addressed later on. And lastly, if there are any questions in regards to our trade show or in regards to MBDA, please feel free to email us at sacramentombda@calasiancc.org. And now I'll go ahead and pass it on to Cecil Plummer, who is our moderator today. Cecil is the President and CEO of the Western Regional Minority Supplier Development Council. And I'll just pass it on to him to give a brief introduction and go ahead and pass it on to the panelists. And I'll go ahead and switch the view. Thanks.
Thank you, Cassie. Thank you, Cassie, and thank you everyone for tuning in. As she said, my name is Cecil Plummer, President and CEO of the Western Regional Minority Supplier Development Council. Yes, that is a mouthful. WRMSDC for short, if you can actually call that short. I wanted to spend a few minutes now that I've welcomed you on just supplier diversity in general and how this all gets started. What is WRMSDC? What is MBDA? It's really a great story. It all started in 1969, if you can believe that, with President Richard Nixon through an executive order, 11425, if you're, or 11458, if you're into that kind of thing. But through that, he created the Office of Minority Business. It was a response to his campaign promises to African-American communities to create jobs. And of course, with on-the-job discrimination at that time, the best way he felt to do that was to help entrepreneurs from the African-American community create jobs in their own communities. The program was a tremendous success. So the following year, a second executive order, 11625, if you care about that kind of thing, the role of the Office of Minority Business was expanded from providing access to government contracts to the private sector as well. Let's skip forward to the 70s and there's a split. The government and the private sector do business very differently. So half of that department stayed in Washington. They've rebranded since and are known now as the MBDA, the Minority Business Development Agency, which is hosting this wonderful event today. The other half of that department, however, went down to Chicago, teamed up with a couple of very prominent African-American business associations. After going through a few iterations, they became what we know today as the National Minority Supplier Development Council. Another mouthful, NMSDC for short. So you see our government roots with the acronyms are very strong. But anyway, today, the NMSDC exists as a network of 23 regional councils across the continental US, Alaska, Hawaii, Puerto Rico. And what do? We do four things. One, we certify minority-owned businesses. 51% owned, managed, and controlled in order to be certified. And that certification has to come every year, has to be recertified, and there is a processing fee that people pay. They always say, what does it cost to get certified? There is a processing fee because we don't get tax revenue like some of the government agencies, so there's a cost. The reason we do that and the reason that's important is because the data shows us that if a minority person owns the company, then they create more jobs in the diverse communities. And that's what we're all about, is economic justice. The second thing we do is provide technical assistance. We partner all the time with major corporations and universities to bring world-class training and development to our entrepreneurs, because we don't want to bring risk into supply chains. We want those businesses to be strong. You might be hearing my gardener. This is the good part about working from home, right? So I'll just speak up a little bit while they're doing their blowing thing. Anyway, we're not about risk. So we want those businesses to stay strong, continue growing, and to continue to create jobs in diverse communities. The third thing we do, which I think is one of the most important, is the connection aspect. You can't do business with people you don't know. So we have all kinds of trade shows. Of course, now those things are virtual, and networking events to make sure that business owners of color have the opportunity to meet decision makers at larger organizations, whether those be universities and government entities or large corporations. That's what we do. And then a little bit of advocacy. We spend a lot of time with state, federal, county, city governments trying to make sure that they're passing policies that support minority business owners. And that's what we do. And that's what supplier diversity is all about, creating jobs and intergenerational wealth in communities of color. So before I introduce you to our two great panelists today, I'm going to do a shameless plug. Follow WRMSDC. That's William, Roger, Married, Sam, David, Charlie. Follow us on LinkedIn, follow us on Facebook to hear information. August, we'll have our, what we call our expo, which is our similar conference to what MBDA is doing. That's going to be spread across 3 days, 2 days in August, 1 day in September. You want to hear about all the fantastic companies that are participating in that. Watch us online. We also have our summer construction series. If you're in the construction business, there's a series of 4 events between now and October, culminating in our large construction event in October. And here's a great thing. If you're an MBE, if you're a minority business owner and you've got a great product, we are right now, between now and August 3rd, we want you to sign up for our video pitch contest where you'll get to show your stuff to major corporations. So don't forget WRMSDC online. You can email events@wrmsdc.org, to put your hat in the ring to show that video to major corporations like Google, Apple, Facebook, Kaiser Permanente, Pacific Gas and Electric. They'll all be there. Well, enough about me, but I'm proud to serve. I'm proud to create economic justice in communities of color. And here's the thing. Economic justice for communities of color is really economic justice for everyone. You're only as strong as your weakest link, and we need everyone participating in this economy. Every issue you can imagine goes all the way back to economic justice. You're worried about affordable housing? Put people to work, create jobs and wealth. You're worried about access to healthcare? Put people to work, right? You're worried about higher education and the cost of education? Who goes to college? A handful of scholarship students and people whose families can afford to send them. It's all good for all of us. Anyway, moving on, we have two fantastic panelists with us today, and I'm gonna ask them to introduce themselves. They'll both have 8 minutes to introduce themselves and their company. I'm gonna start with Wenli Yu, owner and CEO of, I want to make sure I say this, Archimedes. I don't know if I said that right. I failed Greek. Anyway, Archimedes Controls Corporation. Wenli, it's all yours. You're on mute, sir. You're on mute, Wenli. There you go.
Hi. Thank you, Cecil. Thank you, everybody. Let me just make a quick introduction for myself and also the company and the business we're in. I'm Wenli Yu, CEO of Archimedes Controls. Archimedes Controls is an IoT and cloud technology-based physical security solution company. We are based in Silicon Valley. Right here, we have been in business for 5 years. What we do, we design, manufacture, and ship various physical security sensors and cloud software solutions in Northern California. We actually build all our products right here in Silicon Valley for industrial controls and automation, for agriculture environmental monitoring, for building and facility management, as well as for transportations like buses, train stations, and highways for traffic monitoring. We're offering our protection electronics for all physical security needs. Our latest offering is a thermal imaging-based human face temperature monitoring system to help fight COVID-19, which can be used in receptionist desks, front entrance and the building doors to measure face temperature for every visitors and the employees entering buildings. This system can also be used on buses and the trains to monitor passengers when they board. The system will alert and send emails and or SMS messages along with a picture when in temperature elevated person is standing in front of the device looking at the cameras. All measurement records are archived in the device and cloud if a customer wanted. The device can also lock and unlock doors based on the combinations of facial recognition, facial temperature, and the access badges. So it's all automatic and in the cloud services. So we offering two types of business. One for sales, people can buy hardware and or software and then manage it. Or we offer basically rental services. So we provide all hardware, software, and the customers don't have to worry about any of these things. Then they just subscribe as a service. Just like these days, everybody does that, called a SaaS, software system as a service. So let me share just a couple of slides to you so you can see how the product looks like. Oh, I guess I'm blocked to be sharing my screens, but that's okay. So that's all I have. Thank you so much.
All right, well, thank you. Thank you very much, Wenli. Thank you very much, Wenli. Exciting company, interesting products. I'd also like to give our next panelist the opportunity to introduce his company. Here from Genius Innovation Group, LLC, is Michael Lopez. Take it away, Michael.
Hello and good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us. Wenli, good job there. As you already know, I'm a fan of the products you offer, so thanks for sharing that. Hello, everyone. My name is Michael Lopez. I am the founder and the president at Genius Innovation Group, also known as GIG. We are an innovative product and service offering company. We have a couple of products that some other companies offer, but we also have a couple of products that no one else offers. I'll start with the most common products. So we have in stock, just so everybody knows, your N95 mask, and they're N95 so that FEMA doesn't take them from us. That's the customs. We have the adult and the children's size 3-ply disposable face mask as well. And then we also have, just to be clear here, we also have our face shields. It looks a little dingy, but that's because there's a protective film over here you have to peel off to use it. These are reusable, and then these also can be co-branded or white labeled with your company or organizational name. Again, I just wanted to make sure that it's clear that what we offer is some of the standard and some of the non-traditional or non-standard. And then that'll allow me to kind of segue here. We also have another product called Halo Ramp Safety Platforms. Halo Ramp Safety Platforms is a patented technology. What it does is it transforms your straight ramp into a pivoting ramp. So for example, if you're using a U-Haul truck or if you see someone unloading a food truck of some sort, the ramps are straight. And what our technology does under our umbrella is allows your straight ramp to pivot. So now you can take that ramp and you can move it over the curb, over the stairs, and your ergonomic strains are reduced. Those ergonomic strains of lifting, reaching, pulling, pushing, carrying, and turning are now alleviated for those people who are in laborious task or laborious job positions. Halo Ramp Safety Platforms, you can view at haloramp.com. And then another product offering that we have is called the Sterilite. Sterilite is brand new, it's groundbreaking. We launched that particular product in the next few days. We are not able to share, but we do have bulbs in stock. We have performed an erroneous amount of testing and to make sure that we are legitimate in our claims so we can move forward into the market. What Sterilite does is what it does is actually it takes a specific and patented gas, okay? That gas is then injected into a light bulb, a fluorescent light. And then what that frequency does, it stays at the 222 frequency, which is a far UVC light range. To our knowledge, with all legitimacy here, is the first actual product on the market. We're the first people to have a light that kills viruses and bacteria just on light contact. It's called an airborne sterilizer. You can fact check for yourself on Google searches. One of the organizations that has done the most research so far, or at least this year, would be Columbia University, and there are a few others who have also done research to back what we are saying, and we have also done our own research and done our own testing to that we share with our potential customers to back what we are also soliciting and saying as well. But in short, what Sterilite does again is it's an airborne sanitizer that is safe. Again, it's safe for human skin and eye contact, which is the biggest differentiator of our product versus all, again, I repeat, all other UVC lights. So if you're an organization that is looking to reopen and submit a reopen plan for 100% capacity, this is the product that you would be able to use to submit the reopen plan to open to full capacity going forward. Again, our lights are safe for human skin and eye contact. It takes just a few seconds for any bacteria or virus that's on your skin, clothing, cell phone, mask, hat, purse, whatever it might be, to be deactivated and killed. And then from there, you're safe to move about the cabin legitimately. And that is, in short, for the moment, our gig overview for what we can offer for innovation, not just for COVID, but innovation for the marketplace in general.
Thank you so much, Michael. And now, what you've all been waiting for, we're going to get to the meat of our discussion about COVID-19 and how business owners are responding. So Wenli, if you can rejoin us with your camera, and you gentlemen feel free to unmute yourself when you're ready to speak. But I want to go to you first, Wenli. Tell me, how has your business been impacted by the pandemic? You're still unmuted, Wenli.
Well, since we provide all our devices and the services are physical layer, so we're being impacted quite significantly because we got to a point that we couldn't show people the actual unit, the sensors and the gateways to put on people's door. So so far this year and since March, and we have several physical projects being on hold right now, and waiting for being able to enter into the buildings and to start the constructions and installing the products. But I would say in the last month or two so, actually things have been picking up pretty well, since we actually figure out a way to convert our demos to using Zoom and the live on the website. So that's been helping quite significantly, rather than just try to schedule meet with the people, which, you know, it's a little bit harder to do it. But I will have to say the whole industrial, this is probably my own feeling, has changed quite significantly in the last 3-4 months. People are not getting used to from a meeting together to a virtual. Actually, it's more efficiently, and help us reduce the traffic, save time, at least an hour and 2 hours in the morning, in the evening. I live in the East Bay area. Usually coming back from Silicon Valley is kind of a little bit painful on the highway. Now I can step into Silicon Valley, Milpitas into our factory in 20 minutes. And so it's worked out pretty well. And other than meeting with people face to face. So yeah, it's been impacted. I think we're recruiting and we're figuring out a different approach using technologies and to actually minimize the impact.
Oh, thank you very much. Michael, I'd like to ask, what are some of the changes that you've made in response to the paradigm shift that COVID-19 has caused in the business environment? What are some of the things your company has done differently? Oh, you're on mute, Michael.
Thank you for that reminder, Cecil. So I don't think we're unique and the aspect that, you know, we decided that there was something we had to do in order to keep in business, right? There's a lot of people aside from ourselves who made a pivot to a degree. But what we did in particular was we looked intentionally for the area where there was the greatest amount of opportunity. I found more success and innovation, and so with that being the principal guiding factor, or among principal guiding factors for how we do business here at GIG, it was important for us to make changes that were sustainable for not just this period of COVID, right? We wanted to make changes that were sustainable for long after COVID dissipates and it becomes normal, and we have been accustomed and acute to the things we're supposed to be doing socially and environmentally. But in between that time, I said, what am I going to do in terms of keeping up with business? I lost 3 contracts that I had with the state, and I was doing a lot of small business development, consulting, and different aspects of training for small businesses. And so when that happened, I was hit dramatically hard, having only one other product, which is Halo. And then all of a sudden, it was easy to pivot, if you will, and in terms of saying, okay, sustainably, what can we offer? What is the long-term result of that? And does that make sense for this company? Which I mentioned to you in our personal conversation, Cecil. I transformed Halo Ramp Company into Genius Innovation Group, so we could have a more diverse product offering, so that we could be considered for more than just 2 to 3 SIC or NICS codes, fulfillment opportunities, or contract procurement pipelines. I really wanted to put ourselves in a position that, because of what COVID presented, and in my opinion, COVID presented a great opportunity to one degree in business, where there's ways now that not just our lives today have changed, but the future has changed. And so preparing for that future is, I think, where I saw the greatest challenge. And to overcome that, I just had to be open to the opportunities that were presenting themselves to me. And I had to be open to the things that I may not be used to thinking about in order to find a way through. And that's, I mean, we're speaking in real time here, because that's how Sterilite came to be, right? We identified there's a problem. We immediately began to adjust our focus, not to the abundance of where everyone was going, but to where no one was going. And I think that was the greatest opportunity for us, even though it was very challenging. It was, you know, to come up with new gases and new patents and new product and source, a light bulb manufacturer in the middle of COVID. All those are great challenges. But I feel like if you're up for it, then you'll always succeed. So, and that's how we addressed it. It's our attitude, right? If you take the alphabet and you line it out A to Z, and under each letter you put a numerical value for the position that letter is in, and then you put the word attitude underneath that. Okay, all you have to do is add the numerical value of attitude, and it comes out to 100. So the challenge that we faced was technically within ourselves. We had to focus on the right attitude, which allowed us to think in a much more unique way than was being presented to us, with all the stress and all the anxiety and all the stuff going on around us. The attitude was, I think, the most helpful in getting us through the challenge and then getting us into a form of success.
Thank you, thank you. I want to go a little bit deeper on that, Michael, and Wenli, if you want to jump in here also. But you made a pretty significant pivot, and that's what we've been hearing, this word all throughout the pandemic: pivot, pivot. Business owners got to pivot. What are you going to do to pivot? And you went from, if I'm hearing right, like training to like manufacturing and distributing hard, tangible physical products, and using words like patents that, you don't really hear that in the world of training. It's usually more like copyright maybe. So like, tell us how difficult was that transition? And I mean, pivoting into businesses that you really didn't have maybe expertise in. Tell us about that.
Well, I'll be honest with you. I was scared out of my wits, but I had to take a chance. And I think anybody who's had any form of success had to take a risk on themselves first. And so that was the first thing I did, was take a risk on myself. And with that being said, I had a pre-established pipeline of people in my network. that were very diverse in their backgrounds. One of my mentors is responsible for 250 patents. 110 of them we still use, novel things like the coffee pot or the ratchet wrench. These are novel things. So I had a different position, I guess, to be around people who aren't so usual. And that has also given me confidence to think outside the box and to go forward in a way that is not standard and what some people might find to be unorthodox. But we found a great amount of success there, right? Where we're not afraid to go down that path. We're not afraid to try the new thing, and we're not afraid to at least make it the attempt of potentially failing, right? That's something that comes along with everyone that's listening here and everyone who will listen in the future. You know, if you don't try, there's no way you'll know if you could succeed. And then the other thing is, yes, segueing into an industry where I went from consulting and transportation products to medical supply. You know, so it took me a great amount of self or will, if I guess for lack of a better word, to become educated. To understand how wavelengths work, to understand how bacteria and viruses are co-named and break down and have thresholds and have patents. Even viruses have patents, and so I took a great amount of time just on my own time to learn more about what I needed to know from a sales position. So we won't lose our validity as we transition into a new industry and sector of business. But I think, again, it just came about with a certain attitude. I had an attitude that I decided I wasn't going to fail. I had an attitude that I decided I was going to learn, even though there's a lot of words I'd never even seen before in my life. But 4 months later, 5 months later, I can go toe to toe with our NASA scientists. Specifically when it comes to wavelengths. So, outside of that, I could lose every conversation. But when it comes to what we're selling, when it comes to what we're presenting, when it comes to the data that we've generated and the tests that we've done, I know our product like there's no tomorrow, inside and out. And it was a pleasure, to be honest with you, to grow in that capacity.
Great, thank you very much. Wenli, I'd like to ask you a question. You've all read it. You've all heard it on the news and read it, that minority-owned businesses are getting hit much harder than their non-minority counterparts during this economic downturn that the pandemic triggered. And so what are some of the challenges that you feel you faced as a minority business owner? What challenges are you facing, and how are you addressing those challenges?
Yeah, that's a great question, Cecil. I would say, as a owner, as one of the owners of our small business as a minority, and the biggest challenge for us, I would say, is the ability to get capital from various investors, from banks or traditional banks or venture capitals. So what we did is, in the last 5 years, and we started off a business with a couple of my partners on the East Coast and in the West Coast here. And then we want to build our base business, develop technologies. We want to bring it to the customers before we go to talk to investors. And I used to be in the business building startups when I was in the East Coast, talking to venture capitalists from Silicon Valley and the Boston, New York area. I did several of those startups business on those before I joined a larger company after we were acquired by big companies. But I'm always in the small business and between small and the larger business. So I've been learning a lot from various people's. One thing I always have, there's always the challenges, but don't look challenge is the disadvantage of you. Each challenge like this COVID-19 actually presents an opportunity for us. And my background is a technologist, so I love to talk to people and just be very, very straightforward to our customers. Hey, here's the situation we are facing right now, COVID-19. But if I think I had a more success when present my challenge to our customers. How can you help us? We really appreciate it if you can help us, because you help small companies, you help everybody else. That actually worked out pretty well. Don't shy away from the problems to your customer. Just tell them and where you need help, and ask him what I need to do in order for you can help you and help us as well. So that's been working pretty well. Now, also, I have to say, organizations like you guys have been extremely helpful. So, and when first I learned this organizations and BDAs, I think I did Cassie and friends, we've been doing very well. And because we part of the business, we see COVID actually exporting business, maybe there's an opportunity. So we reach out to our customers and to the countries, for example, they haven't been hit as bad as we are. So they're still open doing business as usual, other than wearing masks or things like social distancing. So that's been very helpful. And then we want to make sure things are a little bit beyond my control for exporting licensing or things like that. Then you guys helped us in a great deal to help save me a lot of time. So I think just reach out to the society, to communities, to various government agencies, organizations like you. I think that's the way to go. That's how we can minimize the impacts, and hopefully we can get back to normal as quick as we can.
Thank you, Wenli. And I want to make sure everyone who's still online, use that QA box. If you have questions for Wenli or Michael, enter that question into the QA box and we'll get to that very, very shortly. But Wenli, I want to summarize what I think I heard from you. I heard there was a lot of information there. And so when it comes to funding and access to capital, what I heard Wenli say is he was able to leverage relationships that he had made in the past, whether that's with banks and investors. And I think all of our business owners, we found, or many, I shouldn't say all, many found themselves caught flat-footed when the PPP loan thing started up and found out that you had a bank account, but no relationship with your banker. And then where do you go for non-standard lending or equity investment? So I heard relationships. There's a book out there called Never Eat Alone, where it talks about how you use all of your time building relationships and maintaining relationships so that when you have a need, you have it there. The other thing I heard was network. You got to get around. You got to meet new people. You need to know people in the debt space. You need to know people in the equity and investing space. You need to do those relationships. And the third thing I heard was ask your customers if what you're selling right now or what you've sold in the past maybe doesn't work. What I heard Wenli says, ask that customer. Intimacy is at the heart of competency. That's an old adage from way back in the 60s and the 50s when folks like Dale Carnegie wanted to say, how do you do your business? Intimacy is at the heart of competency. You have to know your client, know what their needs are, and you ask. You ask, what's happening with your business? What's happening in your company? How are you pivoting? And that will give you those secrets. It was interesting to hear Michael talk about how he's looked at the changes that were going on and looked for those opportunities. And that's really what it is. Many of our business owners often, I think, make the mistake of, I've got a product and I want to sell you my product. People really need to have their problem solved. And what I hear these two gentlemen saying is we saw a problem and we went after to solve a problem. And then you have something to talk about. But we're going to go a little bit deeper. Wenli kind of started us down a path, and I'm going to ask maybe Michael, trying to keep it balanced here. Let's talk about resources. Wenli started talking about organizations like MBDA, WRMSDC. Like, what resources can you share with our audience? Like, when you had to find lawyers and accountants and offshore manufacturers to help you pivot from training to hard goods, I mean, where did you go? What resources helped you or what resources didn't help you? Please.
Well, I want to piggyback. I mean, it's a great segue. Wenli, he made a good point, and that was to leverage their relationships. And that's where I had to start. If, when you need something, you call the people that you feel like you can trust, or at least to have your back. And that's the first thing that I did. I reached out to my mentors. I had a couple of people who have some pretty deep pockets in my network and said, hey, this is what I have going on. This is what I'm facing, and don't get me wrong, they're facing the same thing too. They were facing the same thing, so we were all under duress to a degree for a short term. And sources, what sources? So first things first is I'm grateful for the NMSDC, and because there's people that I do have relationships with that I was able to lean on. In particular, there's an organization called Unified Food Group, or UNFI, who's one of the corporate members. A lady by the name of Yolanda Pearson in particularly, for example, last year was able to sponsor my presence at the NMSDC National Expo, in Atlanta. I had to get there now. It's on my time and my dime to get there, but my presence being there, my lanyard, my table, all of that was sponsored by the organization. What that did for my company was give me a tremendous amount of exposure, increase the legitimacy of the product and business offering that I had, and then connected me to people who I was able to then further my relationship with, right? So that I was able to, and remember that this was prior to COVID. So pre-COVID, I was building relationships through the network that I had. So these are the resources. And then post-COVID, I was able to call those same people back with a new product opportunity. We didn't talk about the new product when I met them because it didn't exist. The need for it did not exist. But keep the tip and the resource. So the tip is keep your eyesights open. Some of us can see everything except for what's right under our nose. And I say that because I'm guilty of that too. I've gone out and I've looked for resources. I've looked for new people, looked for new veins. And then all the while, all I had to do was look down. And there's my previously established contacts, relationships, or at least a queue of people who I've already established an understanding of. This is who I am. You know who I am. I know who you are. And that's one thing. And then in terms of the resources, one thing I would just say is if you're a member of a minority-oriented organization, be active. Be as active as you can possibly be, because your supporting cast, your peers, your co-members, those are the same people you can collaborate with and form not just joint ventures, but also find a segue for a new opportunity. That's something I'm talking about now as we prepare for our annual meeting. And going back to Wenli, I think that the most critical mass component right now for any small business is the relationship. If you don't have that, I don't have any personal experience without a personal relationship. And so that would be my 2 cents to add to Wenli's and answer your question there, Cecil.
Oh, thank you. Thank you very much. And there was some good information in there. The one thing that sticks in my mind is if you're going to engage with an MBDA or an NMSDC council or a chamber of commerce, you've got to be active. It's kind of like going to the gym. It's like buying a gym membership and then never going to the gym and then saying, hey, why am I still fat? It's like, it's not a passive activity. You've got to get in there, develop those relationships, because, there was an old friend of mine named Ed back in Tennessee, and he asked me a really hard question. It's like, who are your 2 a.m. friends, right? Who are your 2 a.m. friends? When tragedy strikes your family and your business, who are those people that you can call at 2 a.m. and say, I need you? And who are the people who can call you and say, I need you? And those are the kind of relationships that can help you build your business. So don't be passive, engage. And it's time consuming and it doesn't directly generate revenue, but it's almost like you can't afford not to do it because it's a way to multiply your team without adding to your payroll register. But I want to go down deep for both of you on something. We heard about, Michael, you were able to pivot into a new business, and we heard Wenli, you were talking about access to capital was the biggest challenge, which I think is a challenge for a lot of MBEs. So I want to talk about finances for a moment. I want each of you to take turns and tell me about what was the financial condition of your business that allowed you to either continue delivering products and services or to pivot into products and services that had additional costs that you hadn't borne in the future. And so what was the condition of your business? Like, where did you get those sources of credit and capital? And who were the folks who helped you do that? Because it was so interesting to me to see thousands of business owners literally coming to the WRMSDC network and the panic that was over the PPP. And as we did as an organization actually ask for PPP. But what struck me was some people who were so close that 60 days worth of money was the difference between them staying in business and not. So could you talk about financial management and the relationships you have with your bankers, and again, but after you talk about the condition of your business, how did you reach out for financial assistance? Please, either one of you, who wants to go first?
Yeah, so let me give a shot. I actually started my business in early 90s after I worked for big companies. And I always had that impression in my mind, starting business is a serious business. And I was very lucky, well in the groups, a bunch of us as engineers, and we always chat together how we want to start a business, our own business. And we actually don't have any idea how to do it. But with that networking of your colleagues and including my boss and my boss's bosses, and it was very interesting. And we never shied to actually express our interest to our own business. And the culture, the particular business company I was working for, actually our CEO started his own business. So we had that culture for employee openly discussing own ideas and as open as you can. So there's nothing to hide. I think the company management understood us and actually expressed to me, and we want to help you if you're really serious about it. So I was really amazed that the more openly you can, and actually people wanted to help you, not only your colleagues, including your bosses, all the way to the CEO. So when I had an opportunity, I want to start a business, my CEO told me, hey, Wenli, I know you've always been thinking about this, go ahead, do it. If something happens, give me a call. And if you want to come back, anytime. So I was really shocked and when the company CEO told me about that. So we started a business and with the friends and not only family members, but the friends and the colleagues, the companies, and all wanted to help us. It make you feel like you are pretty powerful. You are not just alone. The most miserable job as a CEO is a lonely job, right? Because you face all the problem. So every time if you run into challenge, try not to make it your own problems. Just be open to your employees asking for help. You never know where the help can come from. Now today, and because of the internet and all the social medias, you don't really need to know the people with a prior experience. You open up a search on the internet, send them an email, give them a call, ask them, hey, what's the purpose of my messages? And you will find out if people, they believe you are serious, a lot of people, they are willing to help you out. So that's how you build your own network without actually knowing the people in the past. Today, I think it's amazing, right? There are so many conferences and meetups, all kind of things. You just sign up to it. Don't think you're wasting your time because everything takes time to build a relationship, and maybe 6 months, or maybe a year, or even longer than that. But all this time you spend actually is an investment. At a certain point, some days will be all paying back. So that's how I wanted to share with you. So I'm always aggressively and proactively reach out to the people I think it can help. And this is one of the perfect example. We never knew each other, maybe in the last few weeks. Today, I got a bunch of messages already showing up here. That's the networking. And also amazing, when you actually met people, I found out you're attending conference, you're sitting on the panel list discussing, then you reach out to the panel, and it's a lot easier than you just send out a cold message.
Agreed, agreed. Michael, I don't know if you had anything on that, because we do have a question in the chat box, but Michael, did you have anything on that question about financial preparedness and financial resources?
I'll be very brief. Wenli, you and I should write a book together. You're my brother from another mother, man. We have the same type of hustle mentality when it comes to getting our point across. It sounds like, you know, you're as fearless as I am when it comes to introducing yourself and stating your case, making your purpose known. I would encourage everybody to do that. That's grassroots salesman right there. That's what built this country and the rest of the world, is just walking up to someone, sending an email, picking up the phone and saying hello. It always starts with a hello. But from the point of financial management, the position of my business prior to COVID was actually becoming pretty sustainable. I was in the middle of my second year of a profitable track. You know, what helped me in particularly is my experience with job costing and costing in general. I believe in numbers, and I truly believe they don't lie to you, and they will help you find out or discover what you're looking for, even if you're not looking for it. And then in terms of you know, managing that difference, you know, that turn of the tide, if you will, once COVID hit, I was not eligible for, or I should say, I was never granted any PPE. I applied for 8 different applications and I got 0. After the 4th denial, I realized that I was on my own. Even though I heard a bunch more stuff come down the pipeline, I realized I was going to be wasting my time. I had to make a decision, right? I had to make a decision to see if I was going to ask for money or go and make money. You know, it was nice, but I can't do it anymore. I got to focus on making money. And, you know, and so when I did that, that was the spur, if you will, or the start of that figure 9. And everybody who understands the figure 9 understand that that's a spore. And that spore of thought then allowed me a transcending thought, which then all of a sudden, Sterilite came and other opportunities. And then in terms of funding and funders, all I can tell you is along the lines of making money is I think that if you can pre-position yourself for a purchase order, position yourself for some type of contract opportunity, you can get that funded by a non-traditional bank. You can get that funded by, and I say a lot easier than asking for a loan, right? You have a schedule of funding that you're supposed to receive. Here's the contract that says you're supposed to receive it. And you can go to, say, a community bank and say, hey, this is what I'm facing. Or you can even go to MBDA and, hey, this is what I have going on. What's the best route? Are there any TDFIs available that might entertain this? But there's the only thing that stops you is you. That's all. I just really want to, if anything happened to me before now and anytime, you know, my message to everybody is you are your only barrier for the success that you would like to see. And as long as you decide to think about things differently and choose a mentality that says you won't quit, you will succeed in whatever you're trying to accomplish. So that's what I have for that.
No, I love that. And there was lots of information there, and I hope all of you on the line are taking notes. And let's just review before we go to the Q&A box. And don't forget, use that Q&A box if you have questions. We're ready for them. Your network is your net worth. You probably heard that. Your network. We've heard these 2 successful gentlemen talk about who they know and who they reached out to for help. Who you know. It's all about who you know. We all know this, right? This isn't new business stuff. But if you need to know more people, then you need to get out there and now virtually get out there and meet more people. And also, I love what Michael talked about. There's asking for money and there's making money. And Michael, even though that's a little disturbing, but please contact us. We should be able to steer you to banks and business consortium fund who can help you with PPP if you want it. But I love that there's asking for money or making money. I love that. And I also love the out of the box thinking, receivables or contract based financing is a real viable option for your business. If you can sell the contract and you can get that capital in advance, as long as you have committed contract or outstanding receivables. I love that. Before we go to the question box, Q&A box, I want to also ask you guys another question. So for example, as a council, as a small business, we are required by our national headquarters to maintain 3 to 6 months worth of operating capital at all times to be prepared for just such a downturn like this. So Wenli and Michael, as business owners, how much reserves do you believe that your counterparts as business owners, like how much reserves should you have? Because I've always found it very interesting that, again, some people got PPP for a different reason, just because it was an opportunity to get PPP and maybe free money and maybe get it forgiven. But there were other people who were really in need. And sometimes you see some of the big office buildings and some of the fancy cars, and you go, wow, how much equity and compensation are you taking out of your business? And then to turn around and say, well, you know, if I'm shut down for 60 days, I'm in big trouble. So, well, how much reserves do you think an organization should have, and how much attention do they need to pay to how much they're paying themselves out of the business, you know, versus having reserves? So either one, whoever wants to go first.
I would say.
You froze up. You froze up on us, Wenli. Start again.
To keep the business moving forward.
Wenli,
but that's
Wenli, sorry, you froze up for a minute. Can you start your sentence at the beginning again?
I would say, can you hear me?
Yes.
Right now? Okay.
Yes.
I would say 6 months is a minimum, and to keep the business healthy and moving forward. But that's more or less a cash flow issue rather than. I don't think you need with the 6 months of a cash sitting in the bank account. If you can manage a cash flow, so meaning we sell products, a hardware product, it always costs our money upfront to buy materials, to build, pay our supplier and the contractors. And so we manage that through our customer relationships. So when we need a cash, and we will typically ask the customer to pay us 50% as a minimum upfront, so that can cover our basic costs for the materials. If you just tell your customers and why we need to do this one, and not all the customers, but most of them will help us out on this one. Maybe not exactly 50%, maybe they say, hey, we're willing to pay 40% under the conditions. If we don't like it, we can return it, you will refund us, or something like that. I think as long as you're more reasonable and you can get a lot of things done. But the other way you can get some financial help is go through your friends and the family cycles and some to help, especially in Silicon Valley, Northern California areas. There's a lot of angel investors around it, and there's not short of enough resource out there. All you need is reach out to these people. And of course, it takes a little bit of time, but go with the people you trust first, and then ask them to help you. I think that there's enough resource out there. And Cassie, if you remember, I've been speaking with Frank, and you guys helped me to reach out to Exim Bank. And Michael's been helping us from Exim Bank based in Washington, D.C., and introduced me to his local contacts people. So the resources are there. It's only a matter of how much you are willing to actually reach out and to discuss with people.
Awesome. Well, we've got 6 minutes left, so let's get some of these QA box questions. So the first one is, for either one of you, how can you compete against major corporations such as Johnson Controls and Tyco? Who wants to take that one?
I'll answer that one. The way you compete, in my opinion, I'll use HaloRamp.com, for example, as an example. So HaloRamp technology is patented. We received our second patent about 2 weeks ago. And the only way for the current industry to compete with my product is to purchase permission via licensing. They cannot make anything remotely similar or operationally the same. They would have to reach out to me or my attorneys. They would have to pay a license fee up front, annual, quarterly, et cetera, and on top of royalties and perpetuity. I wouldn't say, and that's the thing, try not to compete, right? You can't compete with a lot of money. It's just not going to happen. But what I have learned to do is innovate, because when you're innovating, when you're creating, you're not in competition with anyone, okay? Unless there's someone else who is as active as you are, burning the midnight oil and staying up to figure it out too. That's who you're in real competition with, which is the first to market or first to patent, first to file. But truly, genuinely, you shouldn't be in competition, in my opinion. I think you should be trying to find ways to innovate yourself as a differentiator, to find ways to differentiate yourself, which will attract corporate organizations to you. That's my 2 cents.
Oh, that's awesome. That's awesome. Another question we have in the box is, and I want to underscore that before we go on. Don't compete, innovate, right? Those big companies can even take a loss on things just to run you out of business, you know, temporarily, because they've got so much money. So you can't go head to head. If it's Davis versus Goliath, you've got to think outside of the box and innovate. Speed, agility, patents and licensing, right? And don't forget joint ventures and strategic alliances. You may not, you know, you may have to surround that large enemy with the help of some of your friends. The next question out there is receivables financing considered factoring? And I want to open that up. I have an answer for that, but gentlemen, do you have an answer for that? Is receivables financing considered factoring?
I will say so, yes. But I treated it in 2 ways. One, you can actually use your receivable, go to your banks and to get finance on that. The second way to do it is, as I just described, asking for 50% upfront. That's similar to receivable financing, right? And then without paying any interest.
I like that. Progress payments. The construction companies do that all the time. You got to pay for the materials up front. So that's interesting. And I would say, look into organizations like Marble Bridge. There are companies out there, Marble Bridge. I'll put that in the chat box. Who actually do, it's receivables based, but it fluctuates based on your cash flow. So it's not just like kind of that predatory factoring that's, no, doesn't matter how well you're doing, you're paying the same amount every month. There are organizations out there that will allow your payments to ramp up as your revenue ramps up. So think about that. There's another question, gentlemen, in the chat box that says, if you are pivoting, and I'm doing the air quotes because they're on the paper, if you are pivoting your business, how does your network view you? How do you overcome the stigma of starting a new business, AKA inexperienced business, and mitigate that risk for the buyers? Gentlemen?
One thing that's helped me in particularly is, again, those relationships, right? Because people, they understand me. So they know I'm always thinking about something else, right? I might be working this and making money on this contract, but I'm also thinking about the next or the second thing or the third thing. So that's the first thing is if people know who you are, they can almost expect something coming. The second thing is what helped me was that I showed extreme validity when I went back to my reporting counsel and said, hey, I've got new NAICS codes. Okay, so I started there to have my new pivot, if you will, my new pivoting business opportunities at first included on a verified and confirmed sheet of paper from an outside organization. So that really helped me. And then the third thing is when you come with something that is valid, when you come with something that is useful or of need, the question isn't so much there. It's more or less, that's not even a question. It's more about how did this come to you, or how did you get involved with this versus, are you sure? Is that something you can do? Is that in your wheelhouse? All those kinds of things are easily avoidable when you have, again, other people to validate you in the process.
Well, thank you, gentlemen. And this has been a great discussion, but unfortunately, like all good things, our time has come to an end. I'd like to thank our guest, Wenli Yu and Michael Lopez. Don't forget to look up those companies, Genius Innovation, and also Archimedes. Hopefully I said that right. And don't forget, MBDA is here for you. NMSDC is here for you. We wish you well. Don't give up, persevere, stay in business. Your communities of color need you. And back to Cassie and the Sacramento MBDA. Thanks for having us.
Thank you so much. And thank you everyone for staying on. I know we have gone over a little bit, but I just want to give a huge, huge thank you to Cecil for moderating this panel, as well as Wenli and Michael. It's great to have you guys on, especially because we had you last time. Great to have you back and provide a bit more about, you know, your story and your business and how you've really, you know, tackled these challenges during such times. So appreciate you all. And lastly, this recording will be recorded, and the resources that were shared. We got a lot of resources and links available just in the chat box, but we're gonna follow up with all of our participants, all of our attendees, to share those with you when the recording has been uploaded to our website. So please stay tuned for that. If you are a buyer or supplier participant, go check out our directory. You can find Wenli and Michael's company profiles on there. You can check out their product brochures with more information and visuals. Great, great products. So thank you all again, and we'll see you in our last webinar tomorrow around digital marketing and branding. Once again, that's on our website to register if you haven't done so already. Thank you, everyone. Hope you have a great rest of your day.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, everyone. Bye-bye now.
Thank you very much.